Hi, welcome to the Linguist Library. I'm Emily Clarice Pessoa, and on this channel we talk about languages and literature. As you can see by the title of this video, today we are talking about my top Gothic horror classic books. Now, we took a poll a couple days ago, and this video was the one that got the most votes. So, as always, I'm going to deliver on my promise, and we are going to go over a few of the best classic Gothic horror books out there. Now, first things first, what is Gothic horror? It's really all subjective. Most genres and subgenres are all just about marketing anyway. It's just how you market a book. But if we are going to be factual, there are a few things that they all have in common. And I got us a little board because I love writing. You know, it's just teacher habits die hard. Old habits die hard. So the first thing that most Gothic novels have in common is a decaying setting. So they're super atmospheric and they really transport you to normally an isolated location that has, some decaying aspects to it. It might have sprinkles of the supernatural. Maybe we're talking about ghosts. Maybe we're talking about spirits. It has a little bit of madness, just a wee bit of obsessive madness. Perhaps we're talking about the sublime. So it's something that is unknown and it represents danger. Okay? So keep that in mind. Those are the common features that I have found most Gothic horror novels to have. Now, the reason why I love this genre is because it really interludes so well with mystery, which is the first genre that I came across and fell in love with when I was a child. So this really is something that is kind of like part of my identity. Most of my library, my home library, is dedicated to Gothic horror and mystery. So today I had to try and keep this somewhat reasonable since I don't have the equipment to make hour-long videos. I'm going to try to keep this short. So we're going to talk about 20 books. I'm going to recommend about 20 books. And some of them are Gothic adjacent, and we're going to get to that. But let's start with my number one Gothic horror author of all time, and you may have seen her on the thumbnail of this video. Shirley Jackson. Now, I recently got this magnificent edition by the Library of America, and I have to say, I think this is so good. I'm not even trying to sell this. I don't have an affiliate link, although I could probably link it if I wanted to. But I don't think anyone buys from Amazon anymore. Do you buy from Amazon? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, I digress. So here, on this beautiful edition, as you can see, I've started reading and I already tabbed a few of the stories that are here. So I have a collection. We have a collection called The Lottery, which includes perhaps the best short story ever written in the history of the English language, The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. If you haven't read it, start there. Okay. But also there's a collection that goes with it. And then you have The Haunting of Hill House, and you have her other novel, We Have Always Lived in a Castle. And then in the back, there are other stories and other sketches. This is a recent addition to my home library, but I have to say it's probably one of my favorites. They look great on the shelf. So yeah, highly recommend everything written by Shirley Jackson. She is the Gothic horror queen. Her prose is sublime, very much like the genre. And she herself had a pretty twisted life. So this feels and reads very real, very, very haunted. So it has certainly kept me company during this winter. How is the winter for you? I have to say, this was some of the coldest winters I have ever experienced. And I think I'm not wrong when I say this, but we all have a tendency to go a little bit mad in the winter. Or maybe I'm projecting. Anyway, so number 2 on my list is another one of my favorite authors. Now, I have her and her sisters' entire collection here of their novels. I'm talking about the Brontë sisters. I'm going to start with Charlotte Brontë because she is my favorite. And she's also the first one that I came across. I love them all. But I think this is the most famous novel from the sisters. And I recently reread it. I have a few editions of this novel. I have a abridged edition that I have recommended on the channel in the past because I love it when it comes to recommending it for children. So I have a lot of friends who are mothers, and I have sisters and nieces and nephews. And, you want to start them early on classic literature. So the abridged version of Jane Eyre is really good because it has it highlights the importance of education. So I thought that was really lovely. But yes, Jane Eyre has all the good features that a good Gothic novel is expected to have. It has a little bit of the supernatural, if you will. And it definitely has the Yorkshire Moors as the perfect atmospheric background. But also, Charlotte Bronte's prose is very transcendent. I think it takes you there. Absolutely takes you there every time. Now, I have a romance subplot that most people would say this is a Gothic romance. And I have to agree. Daphne du Maurier, Rebecca. This novel follows an unnamed narrator. And funny story, Daphne du Maurier was accused of plagiarism by a Brazilian author who wrote a novel called The Successor. I won't remember her name now, but I'll put it somewhere in the picture. So The Successor is the name of the Brazilian novel that was written before this. But this is about the second wife of a gentleman, and the first wife, her name was Rebecca. So this is about the second wife's obsession with Rebecca. It's a lot more than that. This is I read this in one reading. It's been my favorite book ever since. It was one of the first romance novels I ever read, and I think that it really breaks all the mold. There's really not much comparable to it. It is much better than the Brazilian one, by the way. I know I'm Brazilian, so I'm allowed to say that. But I think that Daphne du Maurier has a real talent for that Gothic feel. She knows how to play and how to create a crescendo with the anxiety and the fear. There's really a serious buildup and a fantastic plot twist. I also recommend The Birds, which is a short story that she wrote during World War II. And really something to be read also. Now, the next author I want to talk about, I have recommended this book in the past because it's good, so I'm happy to do it again. So Oscar Wilde, The Picture of Dorian Gray, for me, is one of the best Gothic horror novels ever written. His lyrical prose is become mainstream, humor. I think most people know what the story is about, but, what would you do to stay young and beautiful? That's the thought-provoking question of this novel, and I'd love to hear your thoughts if you like it. Another novel that I have mentioned in the past before, and we'll do it again. Again, this is a genre I talk about a lot. So, The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I also recently read The Master by Colm Tobin. He's an Irish author. Happy St. Paddy's Day, everybody. We're still saying it. It's still March. Still allowed. But yes, so very atmospheric. The Turn of the Screw. Probably one of those short novels that you read and you spend a lot less time reading than you think than you spend thinking about it later, because it's kind of lingers. Okay, so next is Wuthering Heights, which is by my second Brontë in this list. And now this one is a classic Gothic novel. It has the decaying setting, it has the danger, and it certainly has the sublime and the supernatural. So Emily Brontë, Wuthering Heights, along with her sister Anne Brontë, the Tenant of Wildfell Hall. This novel in particular is not as atmospheric, despite being set in the same location in the Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre, so the Yorkshire moors, but it does have the anxiety of the Gothic novel, and it goes so well with the madness and the power dynamics of a couple, like when there's a lopsided relationship, like of a damsel in distress, or the reverse role as well. So thoroughly recommend The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. Now, another novel that I have to recommend, but I don't have a physical copy of, and this one, fun fact, was the inspiration for the main character in Jane Austen's novel Northanger Abbey. So I'm talking about The Mysteries of Udolpho by Anne Radcliffe. Now, this was the Gothic novel of its time, and it's no wonder Jane Austen tried to make a parody of it, because it was ubiquitous, and I think it can be considered one of the OGs. The next one on my list is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, and this one has all the good stuff and a bit more drama since it's set on a stage, but it's certainly a must-read on my Gothic horror list. Another one I want to talk about is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. I love this guy. He was one of the first American writers to get paid for his literature, and I think this is probably one of his most famous piece of work, but it's certainly not the only one. I really love his satire as well. If you ever have the time, look it up. But, let's stick to the theme of this video. And The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. All you need to know, this guy is headless and he's riding around on a horse. If that's not Gothic, I don't know what is. Now, another one that I want to talk about, and this one starts to bleed into mystery, bit more than horror, is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now, I have this in a interesting edition. It's a vintage edition of novels of mystery from the Victorian age, and it has a few novels that it could be considered mystery, but they bleed into horror. So you have Carmilla by Sheridan Fanu, and you have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by R.L. Stevenson. And you also have The Notting Hill Mystery, which was originally published anonymously, but later it was attributed to... Oh, I wrote this down, but then I changed the page. Let me just take a look for you. So it really feels like it's Gothic because it has the isolation and the anxiety of the Victorian novels and the prose. Okay, so yeah, it was later attributed to Charles Warren Adams. So, the Notting Hill Mystery. Another story that I recommend for your Gothic explorations. Now, I have a ton of honorable mentions that are Gothic adjacent. They don't necessarily have the decaying scenery, or they don't have one of the other aspects of what is traditionally considered Gothic, but they have that mood to them. They have that vibe, you know? So the first one on my list is a short story by Ursula K. Le Guin, The Ones Who Walk Away from Ornelas. Now, The Ones Who Walk Away from Ornelas is I think it's one of the darkest pieces of literature Le Guin wrote, and it's striking. I really thoroughly recommend. The other short story that I want to recommend that has a Gothic feel to them is The Alienist, Psychological Horror by Machado de Assis. And this one really can be classically categorized as Gothic since it does have the isolation trope. If you've read it, you know I'm talking about the greenhouse. Super interesting plot, super interesting scenario. The other short story that kind of has a Gothic feel to them, but not really, not as much, it's another psychological horror, is The Queen of Spades by Alexander Pushkin. So this has the obsessive character, but most of the struggle happens internally. But it also has a little bit of the supernatural. So it's Gothic adjacent, wouldn't you say? And the other two novels that I have and I would love to recommend to anyone trying to start on this genre is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Now, this is technically sci-fi because the main point of the story is the question of Prometheus, of humans, of, you know, the Dr. Frankenstein trying to play God. So, but it does have that Gothic mood. So it's in the neighborhood. It's in that vicinity. And the last one that I want to recommend, other than Carmilla, which is a vampire Victorian novel with a Gothic taste to it, is Dracula, which is also along the same lines. So if you're into vampires and that sort of supernatural, it's a good place to start. Now, I think I recommended all the books I wanted to talk about. I hope this was recorded because I've been talking forever. And no, but I think that's it. If you want to see anything from me or if you have any videos that you'd like me to make, let me know in the comments. I have been posting on the second channel. I've been posting a lot of poetry readings. Make sure to check it out if you're into poetry. And if you want to support the channel, there are two ways that you can do that. I have a PayPal and I also have a members club. So thank you so much for staying until the end. Go check out everything I just said, including the community tab. I'm always posting quizzes and news and poetry and all sorts of things over there. Thank you so much. I really love all the love that I received from you guys, and I really feel like this is such a great community. I really love it. I just wanted to say that. So, thank you for being here. I'll see you next time. Bye.